What's up, everybody? Adam Argyle here. I just want to talk about this dev environment setup I have right now. I've been using, it's called Shortstack. It's just what I called it. It's a minimal stack to help you transpile and transform your JS and your CSS and build projects really quickly. Kind of like a bare minimum post CSS and roll-up setup. And it's got a couple other conveniences in there that mean something to me, and it's also really helpful if you're building something like web components, or really it doesn't even matter if it's web components, it can be CSS and JS. It's a very unopinionated, very minimal way to get started using some modern CSS and JavaScript. I just want to show you what it is because I'm not very good at making marketing pages, but I think I'm pretty good about like showing it to you and just like walking through the stuff that's going on. So if that sounds mildly interesting, continue following along. We're going to go to GitHub and basically spin this thing up from scratch, poke it, check it out. I'll talk about some of the features in it. I estimate we're going to hit about a 20-minute video. I don't know. I'll try to shoot for faster, but I'm not picky. I just want to talk about all the stuff that's in it. Let's dive in. What do you think? Alrighty. How about that? Looks good? Cool. I am going to search for GitHub Shortstack. I saw it in the suggestions. I did. Hey, I'm the fourth result. I didn't think I would be. Why would I be? No one knows what this is. 10 stars. Woo-woo. I don't care. This is really, really valuable to me. I also set this up as a template, which is interesting. And I've used that template a couple times. Anyway, I don't need to go into that. So let's talk about, I'm going to walk through this page top to bottom, tell you what I'm looking at, and then we'll clone it and go to town and kind of see how everything's working. So it says minimalist dev stack featuring concurrent tasks. So concurrent. It's concurrent because there's a watcher of your CSS and a watcher of your JS. They're sitting next to each other. They're actually not part of the same pipeline. That's kind of interesting because if you webpack, if you do, and pretty much all of the traditional ways back to Grunt and other build processes, you'd have like one entry point with multiple watchers. This is a little different. This is just npm scripts spinning one up and spinning two up. And when you cancel the server and everything, it goes poof and destroys them all three at the same time. But it's kind of nice. One will never break the other. Right? Okay, it's kind of cool. Concurrent tasks for shaken bundles and transpiled CSS and JS. So this will shake your JavaScript. So anything that's not being imported. So rollup, this is a great rollup feature. Anyway, so you get tree shaking. And if you implement Terser or something, which I don't have in here, but I have other project examples where I've put Terser on top of Shortstack, you can also dead code eliminate. Okay, so it says shaken CSS. Shaken CSS. It does not shake your CSS, but what it can do is, since it's making bundles for you, you can make lots of little bundles and they'll only use what's imported. So if you have 30 modules of CSS or just 30 CSS files in Shortstack and you only imported 25 of them, the other 5 won't be in any bundles. So it's not necessarily tree shaking, but it is minimal. Anyway, so there's ways that you can use that in sort of it's not tree shaking your CSS. It's not the same thing as what modules are doing. It's not the same thing as what CSS proper modules are doing. Anyway, but it is transpiling. So transpiling your JS and your CSS. Transpilation meaning I want to write with some future syntax, or I want to write with a little bit other way, and then I want that to get turned into CSS and JavaScript that the browser can interpret right away without a step. So we're doing that with post CSS. Post CSS lets me run some transformations and write CSS next, or CSS like to the spec as what's coming down the pipeline. And the same thing with rollup, is I've got some plugins implemented so that I can write JavaScript to the future, but output older bundles if I want to. So kind of interesting. We're transpiling CSS and JS. We're doing it concurrently, and we have it set up so that we're pretty minimal out of the box. All right, I'm gonna scroll down here. Oh, look, I could have just read this. We got modern JavaScript. Okay, we have rollup to bundle. So rollup is going to not just, so if you were using ES modules today, I might as well just like switch over to like this view, right? Okay, so if you're using ES modules today, what you're getting is the ability to have like 6 files. You have an entry point file, and when that one file is loaded, it's gonna be like, I need these other ones, and it's gonna go grab the other ones. Those are separate requests. There's even advantages to separate requests, which we won't get into, but that's native ES module loading, as you're gonna point to an entry, and the entry is gonna pull in subsequent files. That is not a bundle. It's not a bundle. A bundle is when you would take all those, go and concatenate them into one long file and go, here, browser, one request, one file. I call it a bundle. Anyway, this is bundling for you. So you get to write using ES6 modules, but we're going to bundle it for you as part of Rollups process here. You still get source maps and things like that, so when you go back into the dev tools and you go inspect your JavaScript, you're of course going to go back to the file that you came from or that you're looking for. But what I like about this is that I get to write ES6 modules and use them per the spec, but then I get to take advantage of Rollup in the way that it's going to bundle that into one single request. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds right now until I get, some future server that's ready to handle my ES modules really well, or something like if I go to Pika. Anyway, just kind of worth noting that this makes a bundle. It also tree shakes, which we talked about, and it's gonna. Oh, here's a fun one. Here, let me switch to the other view so that you can kind of see what I'm doing here. Right? We're also allowing you to import from npm or URLs. Okay, importing from npm, that's not exciting. In fact, let's just open up a JS file here and just take a look at like what's going on. So when I'm talking about, let's bump it up, zoom in, right? Okay, so I'm here. Oh, that's fine. All right, so we're talking about importing from npm right now. There is nothing super new about importing from npm where you're like, npm install thingy from my command line, and then I go back to my JavaScript file and I can say something very simple just like I am here, which is import thing from thing. That's not very exciting. Shortstack lets you do that right off the bat. Nothing that cool. That's pretty much Rollup with a plugin. Anyway, not exciting, but this I think is exciting. Or URLs. So you can point to a URL, which means you don't have to npm install anything. You don't even have to be using Pika Packager. All you have to do is know that the destination URL is a module. In fact, I don't even think it matters if it's a module, but it's going to go grab that and include it in your concatenated bundle just for free. It also keeps it clean, so if you change, like it caches it and keeps it clean. If you change anything, it'll go re-download the file. It's very cool, very handy. And this is something I liked that Deno is doing. Deno is very URL focused as opposed to like package and pull down focused. I thought that was interesting, and I wanted Shortstack to have the ability to do both. It's come in very handy not having like just a lock into package .json or just URLs. I feel very free, very expressive. It's very nice. Okay, and so you can import from npm or a URL, and you can import CSS. And see, do I import any? I do. Look at this. I import some CSS right here for you. This is useless how I'm importing it, but it's interesting, and I'd like to talk about it really quick. So JavaScript, in this case, can import from a CSS file, and let's talk about what happens because it's fascinating. Rollup, during its bundling process, is going to be like, I found a CSS file. Are there any handlers for this CSS file? And post CSS is going to say, yes, me. And post CSS has all of the knowledge about all of the CSS implementation details and all the plugins that have to do with processing and transpiling that CSS file. When a JavaScript file imports it, it's going to pass through post CSS first, and post CSS is going to get to do things like convert custom properties to a static version for fallback and other sort of things like that. Also, post CSS is going to let me define multiple CSS files and then point to a single one like here. So I get to import default. So I get to import from index.css, and index.css could go import a whole bunch of other things, and that's going to be bundled up. And then my JavaScript is going to consume the bundle. Okay, hopefully you're tracking with me. Post CSS got its grimy little talented hands on the CSS file first, and then it's going to pass it back to JavaScript. JavaScript is going to get it. It's going to call that default export index.css because I can name it whatever I want per this like ES6 syntax here, and then I console log that down here. I console log it just so that you can see it. Like, this is pretty weird, I think. If you're coming to Shortstack from other different build systems, being able to get a string of processed CSS in JavaScript might not be new to you, or it might be new to you. So that's why I included it here as a console log. So when you launch Shortstack for the first time, you're going to be like, why is there CSS in my console? It's because I'm showing you that you can import it in your JavaScript to do whatever you want with it. at this point, Post CSS has done all of its magic, and JavaScript just has this CSS. And it's like, I don't know what you want to do with it. You could make you could put it inline on an element and do inline styles. You could send it to a style sheet and append a style sheet to the page. You could make a constructible style sheet and adopt that style sheet in a web component. I don't care. At this point, Post CSS has done its work. JavaScript has its hands on it. I think that's pretty cool. So I'm going to go back here and jump into index.css because that's what we're going to talk about next. Okay, hopefully that made sense what we're doing with JavaScript. Bundle, treeshake, import from npm. Those are just 3 standard box checks. Import from URLs, pretty interesting in my opinion, and import CSS, all in your JavaScript. Pretty cool. Okay, modern CSS. What do we got going on here? I like Post CSS, and Post CSS in this particular case, I've also taught it how to import from npm. I think that's interesting because there is, in your package.json file, you can specify a style entry point. And so if somebody is npm installed Bulma, for example, or npm installed Tailwind, Tailwind can have an entry point that says style module is equal to whatever index.css. And then when I npm install Tailwind, and then I go import Tailwind in my CSS file, oh, I hit letter S, which is going to pull up their search menu. Here we go, back down to here. So we're still on import to npm. And I come over here, you can see that I've got a little example here. You can just import from npm. That's really cool, I think. Anyway, so as long as the package that you're npm installing has that entry point, Post CSS can find it and import it for you here. It's pretty cool. It might not even be required that you have that style entry point, but actually it's not, because you can point to a specific point in the directory. So anyway, if you know what you're doing with npm, CSS now has the ability to import things from there. It's pretty cool. So what else do we have in the CSS pipeline flow here? We have, oh, I didn't specify import from URLs in my README here, but you can. You can import from a URL here just like you could before. So you could point to a remote CSS file and it would download it and put it in your bundle just like it does with JavaScript. I like that URL mentality. Again, whether it's Pika or Unpackage or wherever it is that you want to go get your module from, it doesn't matter here. Okay, so Post CSS preset env. I am a huge fan. You want to talk about like the single most valuable CSS plugin that I've used in like 4 years? This one's it. It used to be called CSS Next. It is now called Post CSS preset env to basically match Babel preset env. Both of these are powered by the same thing, browser list. You get to tell it your target browsers. They will use that information during the transpilation phase to modify your CSS so it's specifically valid and valuable just for the browsers that you specify. Super sick. But what Post CSS preset env also does for you, just like Babel also does, is it comes with a bunch of really rad features. And if we look at these features, these are things coming from different stages of the CSS process. Here, let me zoom in over here. Zoom. Hey, let me zoom in. There we go. Right, look at this. Oh, that's so funny. If you zoom, that is pathetic. Oh man, that's so funny. Oh geez, okay, so you can't, maybe you could see it if like you're zoomed in or something on your video here, but okay, so anyway, this is stage 0, stage 1 plus, stage 2 plus, stage 3 plus. You can specify what stages that you want to go read. I usually just keep them all on and use whatever I want. I don't know, it's never bitten me, so maybe there's some sort of future thing that I could be bitten by, but I don't know. It's the same thing with Babel, right? You go adopt some stage 0 thing. That's risky. I don't think there's much risk here, but who knows? I don't know. But look at all this fun stuff that you get to play with. You have break properties. You can do different selector types. New ways of passing in color that aren't even in browsers yet, but that can be handled at the compile time. Custom media queries, custom properties, the whole nine. Look, custom selectors. This list is awesome. It is seriously awesome. Oh, and I like this one too. I get to write gap. Actually, you can write gap in Chrome and Firefox now because they got rid of the grid gap because gap is coming to Flexbox and they didn't want to have flex gap and grid gap. It's now just gap. Anyway, I've been writing it that way for a long time because I've been using Post CSS preset env. That was really stupid, but I did it anyway. Anyway, okay, so I'm not going to like sit here and sell everything about Post CSS preset env, but that's the plugin that I'm using in here. and I pass it here because now you can use CSS features from the spec. I think one of the biggest ones in here, let's open this up again just because people love talking about how rad CSS is now, but it's so annoying that you can't nest. Nesting is part of the spec. There's a spec for it, and it looks like this. I've been using it for a long time. In fact, does this have it in here? No, there's not really. Nobody's using it in here. But I use it all the time. It works great. You just have to put and in front of it. That's no big deal. So nesting, Shortstack comes with CSS nesting out of the box. Woo! It's not like I did anything special. I mean, you've all seen what I did here. Anyway, okay, so what else we got? We have easings. So this is something that I brought in because I'm animating all the time, and I used to kind of manage my own set of easing functions. But there's a standard for this, and they're all right here, and they're all by name, and you can go test them out. It's super great. And so what Shortstack does is it brings them in so that you can use them in an animation. It's super convenient. So if we look at Shortstack here, it's as easy as using ease out expo. So this particular keyword is picked up by post CSS and is swapped for the actual custom timing function. It's very neat. Anyway, so all of those are at your convenience. I've also specified just a few colors that I think are nice. In fact, I need to change this because I've changed away from darkest and lighter, lightest in favor of, because basically dark themes have made this, well, all of a sudden my darkest gray becomes my lightest gray as soon as I flip all the variables. So anyway, that's why I'm coming up with a new naming convention there. You could probably just open that file up and blow it all away anyway. Okay, so a Rad Development Server. Well, that sounds loaded. What could be so rad about it? I think it's rad. I don't, whatever. I'm just using marketing fluffy words. It's browser sync. I like browser sync. I've been using it for a long time. It's very trusty. You get really obvious, awesome things like live reload, but you also get cross-device syncing and remote debugging. There's more, and so there's a link here to everything you get from browser sync. It's super nice. And that's what you get for free. So that's going to be live reload your CSS with no page refresh, live reload your HTML and JavaScript with a page refresh. Unless you go turn it off, you can easily go say, hey, don't live refresh my JavaScript changes. I'm just going to do that myself, or whatever it is you want to do. And that is the thick of Shortstack. That's pretty much it. We've got, well, we went over it all. So at this point, let's zoom out, and I want to use it. So let me pull open terminal here. I should have prepared a little bit better now. Here. Get this down into here. Yeah, I think you all can see that, right? Zoom in. Okay. So I'm going to CD to my dev, CD to my playground folder. Yeah. Okay, so now that I'm in my playground folder, our goal is to clone down. We want to get started with Shortstack as soon as possible. So maybe you're interested in what you've seen so far. You're like, okay, I would like to manage my CSS that way. I have JavaScript modules that are very interested in those strings, and they could do some fun things with them. Or you just like the URL nature of the CSS and JavaScript importing. Don't know. Regardless, here's how to get started. So I've got some get started instructions down here, and what these are going to do is they basically git clone and then cut off the fact that they were loaded with git. And what that lets you do is kind of use this like you would create React app or some sort of thing that's going to take a whole bunch of folders and structure and just sort of put them in a directory without git attached. That's what I'm doing here. I just don't have a CLI. I don't think you need one. So I'm going to make a new directory, and I'm going to CD into it. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to say, let's see, Shortstack video testeroo. Okay, and then I automatically CD'd into it, which is super nice. I'm going to come in here, I'm going to grab this git clone, just copy this whole thing, and as long as you've CD'd into that directory, this command won't do anything nasty. So this is something to be aware of. I'm deleting with, remove, recursive enforce your git directory, so make sure that you're in it, and here. So I'm going to git clone. Depth of 1 means don't get all the history. Like, I don't need how long it took Adam to build this. I just want the files. It should go really fast that way, and then it'll clean up its tracks. So here we go. Right, here we go. We cloned in. Everything is exactly as we wanted it. So we have an app directory, we have our package JSON, our post CSS config, and our role config. It does not get much easier than that. If I go into app, we can see that I have index, we just have a CSS and HTML and a JS file. It's ready for you to make complex because by default it's not. So I come in here and I go npm install. Should be quite swift because there's not a whole lot of stuff in here. I think browser sync is one of the bigger ones. Maybe even the fact that the URLs get downloaded. There's like a node process that does that, but nah, it's so small in comparison to a lot of other things. So we'll let this run. I'll just keep, you know, what's it called? I heard this really silly British way of saying that you're just jabbering with someone. It's like jaw flapping or something like that, or jaw jiggling, jaw wiggling. I don't know, wiggle jaw wiggle, something like that. It basically made me think somebody's going like this, and that's all they're doing. We're almost done. We're almost done with our npm install. It's time to stop being so stupid. Oh, it's almost done. Hurry up. I'm tired of making sounds like I'm choking. Oh, come on. Whew. Okay, we're done. 100 vulnerabilities. Last time I checked, it's because like one browser sync module has like one vulnerability that leads to like all these others. I'm not worried about it. If you are, have fun. Check it out. It should be pretty minimal. Okay, so I'm going to ls. I'm going to go ahead and hack into this directory here. Pull open app.index.html, and let's just walk through what's going on in here really quick. We have a title because it's just a Shortstack starter. We have a theme color because I like those, and just a couple of basics. We have our module coming in, deferred, and it's type module, and we have our CSS bundle being appended at the top here too. And I'll come back here and I'll just do npm start to spin up the default dev server. So we see npm run concurrent. That's going to concurrently run our dev.js, our dev CSS, and our server. We can see our bundle was made down here. And if I go back to our browser and open up localhost 3000. Oh, wait, what was the name of the server? I got other things running. 3001. Aha. There it is, Shortstack v1. Right, and if I come back into Sublime Text here and I say, hi all, and I go back, it's all changed. So out the box, it is lickety fast, lickety split fast. I don't know what I was trying to say there. Whatever, it is super swift. Things are hot. You can pull in stuff from URLs. Oh, let's look at the console. Look at that. Here is the CSS after post CSS has got its hands on it, and then JavaScript is loading it and console logging it. Here's all our custom properties. Here's our easing function that's been expanded into its cubic Bezier. We have our shorthand that's been expanded. We have our colors with the fallback being used down here, and our fluid typography is unchanged because that went really well. So that is Shortstack in a nutshell. I think one of the most interesting things about it is that if you're building a component-driven website, this ability to sort of just grab your CSS after it's already been, it's almost like if you've come from Sass or other preprocessors like Stylus and Less, what you're getting is you're giving JavaScript the ability to just import a file, import a CSS file, and that file will automatically come in with all the magic done. And so to your JavaScript, it's just regular CSS, and to the web page, it's regular CSS, but to you as the engineer, it's magical. I like that. It's almost like where Svelte is doing all these things at the compile time, Shortstack does as much as it can at the compile time to deliver these static but enhanced files to the browser. So that is pretty much the end of the video. Where are we at? What's our time? 24 minutes! Ugh, I hope you made it all the way. I don't feel bad for you if you did. I hope it was entertaining. I hope Shortstack was mildly valuable. I've used it. Oh, what am I on? Like year two of sort of like just managing this and using this for all these different use cases. I mean, I have. You'll notice that Shortstack doesn't have a production bundle that gets made. I'm like, look, production environments are much more complex than I'm ready to give you something out of the box for. There's always custom things, custom scenarios, constraints that you have in your production that I might not have, and I don't think it's necessarily fair for me to try to go solve all those for you. So I give you this strong development base, and when you need to go deploy, you can go layer in things like Terser and UnCSS and do all these things to compress, minify, tree shake, dead code eliminate, blah, 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 image optimize, etc. I do agree, though, in case you're using Gatsby or something, that's a really nice thing that they're trying to do for you is handle all that. Very cool. That's all about Shortstack. Thanks for watching this video. Leave comments. Tell me if you like it. Give it a shot. Send me hate mail. I don't know. I don't care. It's just open source free code. If you like it, sweet. If you don't, sweet. Fork it. Make it yours. I don't know. Take care, y'all. Have fun on the web. See ya.